Bankruptcy sounds scary to me. So I'm behind and getting further behind. And I've heard about these other options, credit counseling, credit management, those kinds of things. How is that different from bankruptcy? Does that have a role in bankruptcy? And how should I evaluate those different options?
There are two options outside of bankruptcy. There's credit counseling and there's debt negotiation. The credit counseling is a component of bankruptcy. Before anybody files a bankruptcy, they have to complete a credit counseling class. And what credit counseling does is they look at your unsecured debt and they look at pulling it together, figuring out a repayment plan at a 6% interest rate over a 5 to 7 year period. And if you can repay it, pay off the debt during that period, then you're a good candidate for credit counseling. But that's where that 1/3 threshold comes in. Because if your unsecured debt is more than 1/3 of your annual income, there's not enough money at the end of the month to pay it off, and then you won't be eligible for credit counseling. And at that point, you become a bankruptcy candidate. The other one you hear out there a lot is called debt negotiation. And what they do is they have you pay, a monthly payment each month, depending on what they think you can afford. And basically, they look at what you were paying the credit cards, and they use that as the minimum guide. And they have you pay it in. You stop paying the credit cards, and you start paying it to this debt negotiator. They create a bank, basically what it is. They save your money. And what they do is they wait for the credit card companies to sell the debt to a collection agency. Because once a credit card company sells it to a collection agency, they sell for about 40 cents on the dollar. And at that time, the debt negotiator hopes that they can settle it for 50 cents on the dollar. That way, the collection company's happy, they made a little money, and it gets the debt settled. The problem with debt negotiation is that not all creditors will do it. Some hold on, like American Express is a good example. They do not negotiate down their debt. So you'll never have any success with them. The other thing is that it destroys your credit. You go for about 1 year to 2 years where you're not paying your credit cards. You have all the missed payments hitting your credit report. And even if you were successful, say you did pay off some of this through debt negotiation, it'll show on your credit report that it was settled after all those missed payments. And that's a red flag to any lending agency out there that you're a poor credit risk. And they will not lend you money. And so what will happen is you'll spend several $1,000s trying to negotiate down your debt. You'll go to buy a car and you can't even get financed for it. And that's why bankruptcy is always a better alternative to debt negotiation, because in bankruptcy what it does is it wipes it out and it actually allows you to rebuild your credit. I mean, that is part of the bankruptcy component, is that you are able to rebuild and you do get credit after filing.
Credit counseling starts before bankruptcy. It's the beginning of the bankruptcy process. Is that something I do on my own, or is that something that I talk with an attorney about?
When you come into my office, I run you through all the steps, and one of the first steps after we meet is to complete the credit counseling class. It's something you do on your own. You can do it on the internet. You can do it over the telephone. It takes about an hour to do it. They charge you $50 for it. And what they're looking at is, again, do you have a budget to repay it? And so you pay that directly to the credit counseling agency. They're all approved by Department of Justice. They're reputable groups, and they give them honest feedback. So if they're truly a bankruptcy candidate, as I identify them, they will ratify that and confirm it as well.